Today we're going to discuss 50 classic records that are going to turn 50 years old this year. And it's something I've been meaning to do for a little while, but I didn't want to make the list myself. I thought it would be too biased that way. And I was looking at Facebook the other day and, voila, up pops a list. It's by a radio station in New Zealand called The Sound. Again, they generated the list. I had nothing to do with the 50 picks on it. And I also had nothing to do with the way that they're ranked. So let's give it a shot. What do you say? So number one is the Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Street. And this was released in May of 1972. It starts with Rocks Off, which is, for my money, one of the great lyrics in rock and roll is in that song. The sunshine bores the daylights out of me, which is, if that ain't me, I don't know what isn't. Tumblin' Dice is another song on the record, just a great song, although it is arguable about who did it better, Linda Ronstadt or the Stones. She did a pretty wicked version of this song. Rip This Joint, oh my God. Now, Mick Jagger was quoted as describing the album as runaway outlaws using the blues as its weapon against the world. Okay, maybe a little overstated, Mick, but it's a really great record nonetheless, and has perhaps the best album cover ever in rock and roll history. Okay, number two, Close to the Edge. Yes, just never made it for me, never into that band that much. I found them a mite pretentious, and I don't know, when I think about it, it's probably kind of pretentious of me thinking that they're pretentious, but I will say in retrospect, I think that Chris Squire's bass sound was great. And I think Rick Wakeman was a pretty cool guy. And it also didn't hurt that, he was the piano player in 1971 on David Bowie's Hunky Dory. Which brings me to number three, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Now, this is a truly life-changing record for a lot of people, including me. Although I didn't really get into it as much until the mid-70s, probably because I was a little older then. But like the New York Dolls, who came after them, I really think it took some guts to like this record. It was a commitment. And if there's anybody cooler than David Bowie out there, I would love to get their name, please. So, number four, Something Anything by Todd Rundgren. Now, what can I say? I think this is a record that changed music, because Todd did a lot of this record in his home studio at the time. And I know a lot about it because I actually did a video on it. And watch it if you dare. But I'll put the stuff below in the details box. And if you want to take a look at the video, please do. I think you'll like it. Number five, Steely Dan, Can't Buy a Thrill. I just can't say this is one of my favorite bands. The album does contain the song Dirty Work, which I think is a really cool song. I think, for my money, it's their best song ever. This is another record that I think plays better now that I'm a little older and I've got, some life perspective to look at it from. But anyways, number six, Neil Young, Harvest. This album, oh my God, it's got Heart of Gold on it. It's got Old Man on it. And it's just really Neil Young at the pinnacle of his, the pinnacle of his skills. And again, I did a whole video about Neil Young's previous album, After the Gold Rush. I got to visit his home studio in Topanga. And if you'd like to see that, again, the details are in the box below. I think you'll like that one too. Number seven, Elton John, Honky Chateau. This is not his best album, but, it was on the way to his best album, which I thought was Yellow Brick Road. But Rocket Man's on here, Mona Lisa's and Manhattan's on here. And I think it's called Honky Chateau because he recorded it in a French chateau. And, that's where the Stones recorded Exile on Main Street, although I don't think it was the same French chateau. This record was recorded in January and released in May, and it's just freaking amazing to me the way they used to do that. But number eight, Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull. Again, this may not be their finest album, but nevertheless, it's a pretty good damn album anyways. And it was kind of the dawn of songs taking up a whole side of the album when they first started doing that. But I can't help it. I really dug these guys. 9, Deep Purple, Machine Head. Now, I don't know about you, but I absolutely wore this record out. And oh my God, it contains the holiest riff of Guitardom's Holy Grail, and which is, of course, is Smoke on the Water. And I don't even think that's the best song on the record. I have to say, I think Highway Star is a better tune. But this is another one of these records from 1972 that's got to be in the top 10 or 20 of the most influential records of all time. Okay, number 10, Little Feat, Sailing Shoes. Didn't listen to it at the time. I have to say that their next record was Dixie Chicken, and that was fairly cool. Number 11, T-Rex, The Slider. Now, this is a really good rockin' album. I think it suffered from being overshadowed by their previous album, which was Bang a Gong, which was, actually it was Electric Warrior, but it contained the single Bang a Gong. And I mean, it's got to be pretty hard to follow up that tune. Number 12, Transformer by Lou Reed. This is a great record. And Walk on the Wild Side is just an absolutely killer song. But that being said, I don't think it would get played on today's radio because of the line about the colored girls go do 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 do. But it also contains the song Vicious and Satellite of Love, which is just a really great song. I would consider this record his masterpiece, by the way, outside of the Velvet Underground. Okay, number 13, Deep Purple, Made in Japan. And I didn't realize this came out the same year as Machine Head. It's a pretty good album, as I recall, and I think I think the magnum opus on this one was Strange Kind of Woman. It's really long, but really cool. Okay, number 14, Chicago 5. I have to admit, I never listened to this, nor 1, 2, 3, or 4. Whatever. Number 15, Manassas, Stephen Stills. I think this was a decent record, but did it really have to be a double album? I guess it did. Number 16, Emerson, Lake and Palmer Trilogy. Now, I will admit that I played the crap out of this album, so I know it's long and pretentious, and I don't care. From the Beginning is brilliant, and this album introduced me to Aaron Copland. They did his song Hoedown, and they did it in a really cool way, so I have to say I love this record. Number 17, Bonnie Raitt, Give It Up. You know, nothing against Bonnie Raitt. I'm sure this is a great record. She's clearly a great guitar player, but I can't say I ever listened to it. I'm sorry. Number 18, Grateful Dead, Europe 72. This is a triple live album with extended improvisations. Hey, I like the Dead as much as the next guy, but to appreciate the extended live improvisations, I think you have to be there live doing an extended improvisation while you're tripping, right? Anyways, I'll leave that to your imagination. Number 19, the Allman Brothers, Eat a Peach. I remember my local radio station just playing the holy crap out of this record. And, you know, when it comes to Southern rock, I'm much more of a Leonard Skinner, you know, or ZZ Top guy. So, I mean, that's, you know, they're all got great guitar players. But number 20, Alice Cooper, School's Out. Now, this is a frickin' record, okay? I'm from Detroit, so I remember it came out in June right before school let out. So it's adolescently rebellious. It's just a brilliant FU from a 14-year-old. I love the album cover. I can remember looking at it for hours and hours and hours at desk. And there's a song on here called Gutter Cat versus the Jets that I think just exemplifies why Dennis Dunaway is such a brilliant bass player. 21, the Doobie Brothers, Toulouse Street. I really don't know anything about this record. They weren't my favorite band. What can I say? Number 22, Uriah Heep, Demons and Wizards. The only song on this record I can honestly say I remember is Easy Living. And it's a pretty rockin' song. I hardly hear it anymore. And I remember the guitar player's name was Mick Box, and I always thought that was kind of cool. Number 23, Mott the Hoople, All the Young Dudes. Wow, this is a great album. And it's the first time I can remember hearing of them. I'm sure they did other stuff, but I don't remember. The best two songs on this album, though, were covers. All the Young Dudes was by David Bowie, although I love the way Mott did it. And Sweet Jane was, of course, written by Lou Reed. But again, I love the way Mott the Hoople did this. I mean, if nothing else, this band had really good taste. Number 24, Pink Floyd, Obscured by Clouds. The only thing I can remember about this record is that it was a soundtrack for a foreign movie, and I think it was a record they did right before Dark Side of the Moon. Okay, Never a Dull Moment, Rod Stewart. Now, if you wanted to get in good with a girl, this was an excellent record to put on. You Wear It Well really kind of stands out on this record for me. And who would have thought that this dude would eventually become the Bing Crosby of his generation? 26, Edgar Winter, They Only Come Out at Night. If you've never sat around with a bunch of teenage friends getting high and listening to Frankenstein, then you just haven't lived. Free Ride is a great song too. Awesome album cover. Edgar had himself a pretty good band here, didn't he? Uriah Heep, The Magician's Birthday. I didn't know these guys made another album that year. So, The Moody Blues, Seventh Sojourn. Now, I'm not saying that this was a bad album or anything, but I have to tell you, I didn't know any self-respecting dude at the time that would admit to owning this, let alone having it. So, not for anything. I'm sure it's great. 29, Stevie Wonder, Talking Book. Wow, this is a record, man. I grew up in Detroit, and it was a big deal. They played this on AM, they played it on FM, you heard it all the time. Superstition is a crazy good tune. Jeff Beck did a version of this too. I don't know if it was before or after, which is a really great version of the song too, but Stevie rules, man. Roxy Music by Roxy Music. This is a really great record. Another one of those records that didn't reveal itself to me till a few years later. This was their debut, and what really first struck me about Roxy Music when they came out was the Cupid Girl covers that they had on their records. But Remake Remodel is just a really killer song with a great jam at the end. And this record fit right in with like New Wave a few years later. I, at the time, didn't know Brian Ferry wrote all the material. I thought it was more of a group thing, but he was the writer. This was a pretty influential band, Eno, everyone. Next is Genesis Foxtrot. Okay, let's just move on because I don't know anything about it. So Pete Townsend, Who Came First. This is a decent record. This album mainly consists of demos that Townsend was doing for his next musical after Tommy called Lighthouse. It never panned out, and most of those songs became Who's Next, which is possibly their greatest record and definitely on the all-time 10 best list. Okay, Chuck Berry, the London Chuck Berry, number 33. This is the absolute ground zero inventor of rock and roll, so all props. But I think the main song on this record is My Ding-a-Ling, and not one of my favorite Chuck Berry songs, although it may have been his biggest seller. I remember hearing it on the radio all the time. And I see that Ani McIntyre and Robbie McIntosh are the backing group, and they later went on, probably really close after this, to form the Average White Band. 34, War, The World is a Ghetto. This is a great record, and as a harmonica geek, I just love Lee Oskar, so he's the man. And it still sounds great, by the way. Slade Alive. I always found the pictures of these guys to be more interesting than the band's music. They did, however, pave the way for one of my favorite bands of their ilk, which was Sweet, which came out a couple years later. 36, Cat Stevens, Catch Bullet 4. I think this guy's music is really listenable. I like it. But I have to say, I don't think this was one of his best records. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why it's called Catch Bullet 4. I'm sure there's a reason, but, you know. 37, Rock of Ages by the band. I really dig the band, and this is a live album, and I think it totally gets overshadowed by The Last Waltz, which came out, 3 or 4 years later. And I don't think you can argue with The Last Waltz, so, whichever one's great, I'm sure. Next is Grand Funk Railroad, Phoenix. This is probably one of the more forgettable albums by one of my favorite groups of the 70s. We're an American Band came out the next year in 73, and that was anything but forgettable. It was just a great record. The one thing this record does have going for it, there's a song called Rock and Roll Soul on it, which is a pretty great song, pretty rocking song. Okay, 39, Santana, Caravanserai. Much to my shame, I couldn't tell you one song on this record. I'm not saying it ain't good. I'm just saying I never really listened to it. Clear Spot, Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band. I hadn't thought of this album in years, but I was watching The Big Lebowski a while back, and all of a sudden I hear it in the background. It's a scene where he's listening to his answering machine. The cops are calling him, telling about a stolen car and the rug and the rug pissers, all that stuff. It's a really weird song and a really good, weird movie, great movie. And I think it was just too weird to be successful, but you know, that's kind of why it's great. Next is Van Morrison, St. Dominic's Preview. This is a great album from start to finish. This guy had so much soul, and he really shows it off here. And by the way, I think the unsung hero on this record was the guitarist, Doug Messenger. And he's one bad dude. And I happen to know Doug. He owns a studio here in LA, and I've worked with him before. He's a great producer, and he's a hilariously funny dude. So 42, The Beach Boys, Carl and the Passions, So Tough. I have never listened to this record. And looking at the writer's credits, I'm seeing Daryl Dragon, who was a captain of Tennille, listed more than Brian Wilson as a writer. So I just think I'll stick with Pet Sounds. 43, the Jeff Beck Group. I don't know. I think Jeff Beck just had issues trying to find a new singer to replace Rod Stewart. You know, Bob Tench is the singer on this, and he's good, but he ain't no Rod Stewart. And I think eventually Jeff Beck just gave up looking and started putting out instrumentals, which was, you know, totally cool. 44, Jackson Browne, his debut record. You still hear Doctor My Eyes on the radio almost every day, anytime you turn it on. I mean, it's a good song and everything, but a lot of people thought this album was called Saturate Before Using, because if you look at the album cover, it says it right at the very top. I think it was part of the thing in the photograph that he used, but anyways. 45, Blue Oyster Cult. I think this is their debut record. It's a pretty cool record. It was considered very heavy at the time. Stairway to the Stars was one of the songs. Cities on Flame with Rock and Roll was one of the songs. They obviously liked really long song titles. And my only critique about this record is that it could use a little more cowbell. 46, Paul Simon by Paul Simon. Me and Julio Down by the Schoolyard is on this record. Mother and Child Reunion is on it, but Me and Julio is just a brilliant song, and it's worth getting the record just to listen to that, quite frankly. 47, Eagles by the Eagles. This is their debut record. It's a great record, no matter what you may think of the Eagles or country rock as a genre. I think these guys were really fortunate to hook up with Glenn Johns, who the producer. He had done The Who, he had done the Stones, he had done Led Zeppelin. He was really good at capturing the band and in their essence. And I think this album really defines a genre and still sounds great. 48, The Raspberries, Fresh. This is a good record. I know a lot of people that absolutely love it. For me, I would rather listen to Big Star's #1 record. They kind of sound like the Raspberries to me, but in a more rockin' way. And I know #1 record came out in '72 also, but it's not on the list here. So anyways, 49, Black Sabbath, Volume 4. I'd tell you 50 right here, but they only went up to 49. Which just makes so much sense, right? Who wouldn't want a top 49 and not a top 50? But I guess I get to choose one. So I was looking at some stuff the other day, and Smokin' OPs by Bob Seger came out in '72. But I think the record that didn't make this that I really dig that came out in '72 was Curtis Mayfield's Superfly, which almost just defined a genre. It was really great. But anyways, that's it. And this has been really fun doing this. I hope we can do something like this again. Let me know your thoughts and comments. If you haven't done it already, I would appreciate it very much if you subscribe to the channel, and check out some of the other videos that we've done too. I think you'll like them. But I want to thank the Sound in New Zealand for making up such an awesome list. Until next time, peace out to you. All right, bye.